Good evening, everyone. It feels really good to be here tonight with you all. Better than being, kind of thinking about the coming days and with somber, heavy feelings about what to expect. A lot of uneasiness, a lot of anxiety, um, because and for good reason. We've been hearing for many months now what this new administration and what this Congress has planned to implement as early as Tuesday. Um, Raids on different communities and sanctuary cities, increasing criminalization of the poor, moving people into detention centers and jails and government-run encampments, denying life-saving and affirming healthcare to pregnant people, trans kids and adults, and broader segments of the population who just can't afford to see a doctor even if they have health insurance. And otherwise just making the places that we've thought of as safe, our community spaces, our schools, our churches, our hospitals, fundamentally unsafe, and unleashing a deep sense of insecurity and panic, not only in these preliminary cities that are going to be targeted first, but among our broader population. And really, like there's a preying, P-R-E-Y, preying on our fears that things aren't okay, because they haven't been okay for actually a very long time, and using these tactics, using this violence to make us think that the people who are being targeted, that they're the problem, right? That they're the reason why healthcare is unaffordable, or why housing and food are so expensive, or why our water and air are poisoned, or why we're facing climate disaster upon climate disaster. And of course, we know that's not true. The reason we're facing these injustices is because those in power, those with the influence and wealth to decide how our public resources will be spent, whether they'll go to policing or public education, whether they'll go to bombs and tanks or fire stations in FEMA, whether they'll go to tax breaks for corporations in Wall Street or poverty programs. They're the ones who are, those who have wealth and power already, they're the ones using arguments about fiscal responsibility to cut these programs, or making government more efficient, right? But efficient for whom? Certainly not more efficient for those of us who rely on any of these public programs. They're going to make it very, very much less efficient. It's only going to be more efficient, more productive for those who already have that wealth and power and influence. And so as I was thinking about the service today, and as we kick off this season of Learn as We Lead, I think the readings that we'll hear from soon, they remind us that how those in power, whether it was Caesar under the Roman Empire or those in power today, they'll attempt to divide us. They'll attempt to sow division, and among those who are hurting, to maintain their power. They'll try to have us believe in their definitions of efficiency and responsibility, rather than us coming together to hold them responsible and accountable to us and to our needs. And so we'll hear from King, that we don't have to live as we're forced to live. We don't have to fall for these false divisions. We choose each other. We stand together. And so as we move into the rest of the service, I wanted to share some of what Jarvis and I have been working on at the Kairos Center over the past year or so, the past year and a half. We've been compiling lessons from the pandemic period, looking at how different communities and organizations worked to fill the gaps, these big gaps in our society, how we came together and broke the isolation we were experiencing, and sometimes how we even created the possibility of further organizing through doing that. How these pandemic survival strategies could also be the beginning of projects of survival that can move the rest of our society in a whole different direction. So the report and all these findings will be coming out soon, but I just wanted to share a little bit of what we had included, because it seemed to me really relevant to this theme of Learn as We Lead. So I'll just read a couple sentences here. In response to the social, political, and economic failures of the pandemic, thousands of communities stepped in to provide critical material and emotional care for their families, their friends, and their neighbors. While these networks were not new, their scale and scope during the pandemic was. On the one hand, they were an inspiring reminder that people in crisis will always find ways to take care of each other. On the other hand, the extent to which these activities were necessary laid bare the widespread and punishing reality of American poverty and inequality. We know this need persists today, that those community-based networks that burst to the fore during those early months and weeks of the pandemic are still providing support to millions of people, responding to multiple ongoing crises around housing, hunger, healthcare, and climate breakdown, as well as attacks, which we know will escalate on immigrant communities, on reproductive rights and LGBTQ youth and households. Now, in the past, these projects of survival have served as an essential cornerstone of transformative social movements, from the poor in the Roman Empire to the Underground Railroad, to the mutual aid networks of the Black freedom struggles. And today, amid threats of worsening political repression and widening inequality, these projects, this organizing, this community-based coming together around our fundamental needs has the potential to play a similar role in building a mass movement that is organized by millions and millions of people while pushing back on these rising extremist and regressive forces. So over the next several weeks in this season of Freedom Church of the Poor, we will hear from people engaged in these struggles today on these front lines. And that's why the season is called Learn as We Lead, as we learn from those leading amid these multiple escalating threats. We'll hear the tactics, we'll hear the strategies that are being deployed, as well as the political and moral insights into what it will take to move us and to move society in a different kind of way. So thank you for joining us tonight as we begin the Learn as We Lead season and for building this beloved community together.